Hello, theme park enthusiasts, and welcome back to Planet Coaster. In this episode, I'm going to do something very different for myself that I have not done in the past before. We're going to add into the park something that really is just a static scene. It's not going to be something that the guests can really interact with and such, but I felt like it was something that added to the overall feel of the park. So I'm looking at it in a lot of ways like they have the foliage and plants and such, but in this case it is going to be sort of a theming of a ride that I wish was in the game but is not. So we're putting in some pedal boats here. Now when I designed this overall layout of the map, I did put in this waterfall over here as well as this lake area because I wanted to have some sort of natural beauty for the guests to appreciate. And with that in mind, when I was looking through the workshop, I found these interesting pedal boats. Now, there are some parks, especially in Europe, that I've seen, that do have pedal boats as part of the park where you can go ride on them. I don't know of many here in the United States that have it, but I could definitely be wrong. As I have said before, I've been out of the theme park fandom for a long while. I've always enjoyed theme parks, but it was just something I hadn't participated in for a long while myself. I'm getting back into it now, but there are a ton of parks I know I have not seen and such. So what I wanted to do here, I thought it was something neat, and it's just sort of a relaxing thing that guests would be able to do. So if you weren't really wanting to go on the big coasters for a while or something, you could go down here, rent a boat, and go out on the lake here for a little bit pedaling around. So I went ahead and made this dock here as we're talking, and basically just using some of the things that are already in the game, just some standard wood boards, some cleats, and repurposing some wood framing into piers. Then I went ahead and brought over these pedal boats, as I had said, from the workshop, and then I just wanted to change them up slightly to make each one unique and different. And here, this one's going to be sort of at the dock, so with that in mind, I wanted to go ahead and make sure the dock was at the right height, and then have it so that the rope sort of attached it like the pedal boat is anchored to the dock. Now with this, as I said, I mean, this is definitely not something the guest in Planet Coaster can use. Just adds a little bit of, I would say, realism in a way to the game, because it's something else that the guests would be able to do in real life. Now, what I've done in the game, as we'll see as this episode goes along, is I go ahead and put in some viewpoints in the area, so that way, even though this is a static object that won't be interacted with by the guests, in the more technical sense, it will still be there for the guests to use in the fact that they will come down to this area to take pictures and such. And so in that way, there will be guests in the area, even though it's technically not a usable item. So here, just trying to get the ropes to be somewhat realistic looking. It is a challenge because the ropes are a little bit oversized, as are many of the things in Planet Coaster. So you just have to do the best you can with it, and that's what I'm trying to here. I just want to get the curve so it's not too unbelievable, but it is really a challenge to get it to fit exactly how you would want. So then, as I said, I did want to bring in several different ones. That way we've got people on the lake in different locations. But again, then I want each one to be sort of unique and different. So putting different people in different locations, changing up skin and hair colors and shirts and such. And these are just some of the robots that are in the game that the person had used when they created this file originally in the workshop. And this is something that I will be doing more of as I continue with Appleford Amusement Park here. We are going to have a park here where there are going to be a lot of different rides, some of which just aren't available in the game, but I do want them to look like they belong in the game. So with that in mind, I'm going to use things off the workshop that then give that feeling of realism even if it doesn't truly exist. Now, as I said with this, even though it's not going to be a functional item in the game, I did want people to still come down here. I know I've seen a lot of videos from people where they have built things that are static in their parks, and I mean, that's really where I drew a lot of the inspiration for this from. But the thing for me is I wanted it to not only be an object that was, realistic looking in the game, but I also wanted the realism of the people actually going and using it. So with that in mind, I did want to go ahead and create a path here that people would be able to walk onto. With that, I also needed to extend the park into this area where we hadn't gone before. So went ahead and brought a main path over to this side, and in some places I've used a bridge and stuff to cross over the train. In this case, I wanted to go under the train. I wanted to give a little bit of a unique look to it and such. And here I'm just sort of laying out groundwork for the future of this area by putting in paths and stuff. I am struggling with the fact that the path is wanting to dig into the ground, and I really don't want that in this case. I feel like in a park of this nature, it is a very well loved amusement park and such, but they aren't going to spend extra money where they don't have to in a lot of cases. And so they aren't going to do things like dig out the ground in most places. They might have felt like for that particular area under the train tracks, it was a necessity. So in that particular area, they may have done so. Same thing here. Originally, I was going to put this in as a bridged area, and then I thought about it, and it's one of those that it's like, really, would they have spent that amount of money on columns and everything like that just to have guests walk over an area that they don't need to? And that'll actually work better the way I have it now, because it's opened up that area where I'm going to probably end up putting in another coaster. So we'll probably do a coaster that's going to use the terrain over there and sort of have fun with the natural terrain as it is without having to adjust it too much. Speaking of terrain, we have this terrain here that I had to work on some, because I do want this to somewhat look a bit more natural. I don't want it to look like it's just very squared off in all the corners. I want it to look like they really did sort of blast through the ground to make it work. Now here I'm creating a little seating area basically, and I do have a plan in mind for that. You'll see that here in a little bit. But I wanted to have it where, once again, guests would actually be able to walk in these areas. So here I'm actually trying to find what I'm needing as far as the viewpoint type things. I always struggle with finding the viewpoint. I don't know why, but it's one of those that I really always forget what it is that you have to put in for the guest to go ahead and find it. So probably right now, while it's sort of not moving, what I'm doing is searching online, trying to figure out exactly what the name of that structure is so that I can find them. There we go. Now I went ahead and found it. Go ahead and place it down there. And so that way, as I said, guests will come down to this particular point and they'll look out over the water. And with that, then you'll sort of get at least a little bit of a feel of realism that this area is used and the people might be coming down to go onto the paddle boats. Unfortunately, I can't do anything about making the paddle boats actually run or anything, but we'll try to use our imagination as best we can in order to get at least some realism to the area. Now, for right now, what I'm doing is I'm looking through the different objects I have available, trying to find maybe a beam or something of that nature that I can use to sort of hide this vista point, because I don't want it to just stick out there and be obvious as, oh, this is the reason why the guests are coming down to the area. I want it to be a hidden little thing here, so that way it once again looks very natural that the guests are here just because they want to be here, not because I've sort of used the computer system to make them come here. So originally I was looking at doing something like a sort of sign here, just something that in that way the guests would be down here reading the sign, and that's the reason they're stopped where they are. And I do construct this for a little bit, but it doesn't work for me. I don't like the overall design of it, so I will scrap that here in a few minutes. Now, as I said, this is the first park I've sort of done these sort of objects in instead of just doing rides. And for me, part of that is because this park, I really want to be very realistic to what my view of the park would be. I love Planet Coaster. Really, I've been playing Park Beyond quite a bit right now as well. And I have to say that comparatively, I still really prefer Planet Coaster over Park Beyond. There are some of the rides that are missing from Planet Coaster in Park Beyond, but there are so many other things that are wrong with Park Beyond that cause an issue. And then even beyond that, the fact is the creativity I can do here with Planet Coaster is just not even available in Park Beyond. So the difference is somewhat staggering, I'd say, between the two games as of right now. I hold out hope that Park Beyond will become something greater in time, but for right now, it's struggling, in my opinion. And reading a lot of the reviews on the Steam page and stuff for it, it definitely seems like I am not the only one who feels that way. But as I said, there are issues in Planet Coaster, and to me, I think the biggest and easiest solution for that is going to be if they would just simply build a Planet Coaster 2. Then they could put in the new rides that are sort of missing from this game. They could put in some of the just odds and ends that we feel like are necessary in an amusement park. For right now, though, I will use what I can here in the game. And as I said, that's sort of what I'm doing here. There are certain things that I feel like would be in Appleford Amusement Park, and over the next couple episodes, you're going to see quite a few of them. A few of the things are going to be actually usable, such as I do plan on putting a restaurant into the game here in an episode or two. But then there's also going to be things like I really want to have a sort of carnival-esque type midway section to the park. I mentioned that in the story for the haunted house, and it is something that I really feel fits into what this place is, and they just don't have anything in the game that really fits for that. So I am going to sort of build my own using some things that are on the workshop. So it won't be technically usable, the same as this area is not technically usable. But what we'll do with it is we'll edit it enough to sort of cheat the system and make it where it looks like, as far as what the guests are doing and stuff, that it is actually working and is a functional thing for the game. Anyways, a little bit of a rant there, but I just wanted to clarify sort of what I'm doing over the next couple episodes, because as I said, it's actually going to be a lot of non-functional items that are coming into the game. But for right now, what I'm doing here is I'm actually putting in this little shack, because for me, I felt like when you're going to have something like these pedal boats here, as I said, I think it would be something that would be sort of an upcharge. It's not something that just would be a part of the park. You would actually probably end up paying a little bit extra to go on the paddle boats, or the pedal boats. But even if it was just part of the park, there'd also most likely be this sort of guest services area here that would help you get the boats and everything of that nature. They'd have somebody down here, sort of like a lifeguard type almost, at all times, just to make sure everything's going safely. Now, this is, as I said, sort of a imagination thing on my part, because for the most part, I don't believe that these really are done at parks in the United States. They are in Europe, but once again, then we also have the difference in safety rules between the United States and Europe. So here in the United States, I really think they would have a lot of people, as far as lifeguard type people, here just to make sure everything was safe. So what I'm doing, since, as I said, we sort of do need this area to be functional, is I'm putting in just a little kiosk here and stuff. It's going to be basically a drink stand, if I remember correctly, but that way people will actually come down here possibly to buy a drink and such, and once again, it'll look like people are actually using the location. So yeah, we're just putting in a Pip Shop water there, but it is one of those stores that does do a decent amount of business, so people may walk down here just to be able to use the Pip Shop water, which works out as far as I'm concerned. That way the area looks sort of lived in, which is what I'm wanting here. Now, since this building is not constructed on the standard template, I am having to struggle to make sure all the pieces sort of fit together without the walls sort of fighting with one another. So here I'm having to put in an angle piece just to cheat that wall slightly so that the Pip Shop water looks like it's a part of the building without it being sort of awkward. And then I had this corner over here which I really wasn't sure what I wanted to do with, and then it came to me that once again this area is sort of off on its own in the park. Now I'm not going to actually put in a full-on bathroom here, but I want to give the illusion of having a bathroom here. And with this, sort of the image I have in my own mind is basically something that is sort of rustic. I sort of wanted it to feel like a shack. Maybe this area had been there even before most of the amusement park had been built. It might have been that really the park began with rides like this, where it was something where, you know, you went there and you went on the boats on the lake. So here, as I said, I did want this rustic feeling restroom type area. So I went on to the workshop and I found a basically outhouse. I didn't want most of it. It's definitely not something that's going to be functional, and most of the stuff I'm going to use the walls that I want from the the building the way I have it. But what I liked about this particular workshop item was this door, because I really thought it felt like rustic engineering of just an outhouse style door. And that was perfect for what I was wanting, so I went ahead and grabbed it, and then, as you can see here, made some alterations to it just to make it sort of fit what I was wanting in the shop overall. So once again, none of that is usable, but it's just the illusion of being usable. Now, looking at it, I do realize that sort of the porta potty logo there on it is a bit high up and such, but once again, it's just more imagination than it is anything else. Here I wanted to go ahead and add in some lighting, because even though this is a rustic looking place, the fact is this is a modern park and I would want people to feel safe and secure in it, so we do have to add in those things to make it feel that bit more secure. Then we'll put on a sign that sort of fits with the overall aesthetic of the place, but allows you to know what it is that you're getting there, which is to rent the paddle boats, or the pedal boats. Keep calling them paddle boats, but realistically they're pedal boats, because you actually use your feet to pedal like a bicycle. So same thing here, I wanted to give off this feeling of being rustic, and so just putting on sort of this tin roof. This is one of those things where I just absolutely love it about Planet Coaster. People have spent so much time in the game creating wonderful things that are published on the workshop. I've put a few things on the workshop myself, but the thing is, you don't always have to create everything from scratch yourself. You can go ahead and find these things that other people have created and use them to make a building that looks actually pretty dang good, or that fits a fictional purpose that was never intended in the game. So that's sort of what I'm doing here. As I said, I sort of envisioned this, at least the storyline that the guests would be seeing from it, is this idea that this is a shack that was sort of here for a very long time, that the pedal boats were there before most of the park was ever created type of thing, and that it just sort of, they haven't really updated it. Now, again, I would say that's more theming than actually true. The park would definitely have ensured that the place was clean, safe, everything of that nature, but I wanted to have that feeling like it's rustic. So that's what we have sort of going on here. Again, just sort of with the way the game is, making sure that we have seats all the way along so that people will go ahead and feel comfortable, will use the area. I go ahead and move a vista point down here because I do want people to sort of go all the way down to the water's edge. I can't have them use the dock because, once again, that's not actual pathing. So that's not going to work, but I do want them to walk down that way. So we go ahead and make that possible there, and then we're going to move this vista point slightly here, and instead of the sign that just wasn't working for me overall, we'll go ahead and put some rocks into the area. Because, again, they look natural. It is sort of a rocky area, or at least a hilly area, so a few rocks there don't look out of place, and at the same time it gives a reason for existing while also hiding that sign. Now, as I said, I sort of also want to give this depiction more theming than actuality, but just the idea that this area was actually sort of this quaint themed area about being in the wilderness some. So I've created sort of almost a campfire scene around it, and I'm loving these lightning bugs that you can get in the game. That's at least what they called them when I was a kid growing up. Don't know if they've sort of changed the name for that now, but basically these bugs that sort of glow in the dark kind of thing. They emit their own light, and they're really pretty, especially at nighttime, and I felt like they worked just to once again sell that sort of wilderness idea overall. So wanted to make sure that we had plenty of those going on, and just putting them so that they do sort of function continually throughout the night. Now, as far as things like trees and everything like that, still am going to do those, but once again, that's going to be something I do toward the end of the entire series, really when we're decorating the park overall. for this episode, as I said, this is just, in my opinion, even though it's not an actual functional thing, is adding another sort of ride or feature to the park, just like any of the roller coasters and such that I've built in the park so far. And I'm pleased with the way this came out. Even though it's not an actual functional item, I feel like it does sort of give that feeling of nostalgia and something that would be sort of traditional in a park that people would then sort of enjoy. And in a modern park, they'd be like, ooh, look at the old-fashioned ride. Let's go try that out, simply so we can relive those old days. Now here on the sign, I did put Peddle Boats. I don't believe it's even in this episode, but later on I do realize my mistake, and I do go and change that to Peddle Boats. But for now, we're just going to finish decorating this sort of scene here at the front of the location. Basically, I'm going to go ahead and create sort of a porch area here, and we're going to put out like a cooler of sodas and a rocking chair and stuff, just once again to sort of create that aesthetic of it's almost a camp-like feel to the location. And I wanted to have that sort of just very friendly, welcoming environment to it, but at the same time something that's very old-fashioned feeling, not your standard thing that you would expect to find in sort of a modern park. And I felt like that gives it a bit of a unique feel. Basically what I'm wanting here is the fact of sort of giving a history to the park, making it feel much older than it did with just the modern sort of rides that I've put in so far, and at the same time giving it sort of that well-loved feel, because this is the type of ride that really probably is not very profitable for the park, but it is the kind of thing that, since it's tradition, since it's something they've had for generations and generations, they've just decided to keep there because they want to keep that history going. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and stop talking here and just let you enjoy the last few minutes of me finishing off this area of the park. We're just going to do some land leveling here, and then, as I said, we'll also go ahead and put in the stuff on the front porch there. But with that in mind, if you enjoy what I did in this episode, please go ahead and click that like button. And if you've not already, please subscribe to the channel, click the bell icon, so that you're aware when I produce new videos in the future. Thank you, and I hope to see you again for more Planet Coaster.